So hello everyone. I hope you all are doing fine. As I am recording this video, it's the last week of this year, 2019, and I wish all of you a very happy and prosperous new year. I don't know, maybe this video might go live on in the month of Jan, that is 2020. Yeah, uh, I did promise you all that I'll be uploading videos quite frequently, but then I have been a little busy with other stuff coming in my way. So I'll try my best starting 2020 to make all these videos coming to you very frequently and try to maintain a sequence of all the videos. All right, so today's video is about front end developer. A few good things you should keep in mind to become a good front end developer. Let's get started. So as I said, few basic things to remember to be a good front end developer. That would be as a front end developer or a front end engineer, you have to keep a few things in mind. That is, a good developer always questions him or herself throughout whether he or she is building the right thing, as I've just written it over here. What I say here is you have to sometimes look at the requirements which come to you and try to analyze what you're building so that you can deliver a good product at the end of the day. That's what I'm trying to say over here. And this will sometimes help in a great way to achieve the goals and objectives of all the stakeholders in the project. Having said that, you must also try to understand the requirements and the problem statement, because that's the only way how you can build the right thing, right? And always you should plan your tasks before executing in order to avoid all the rework and starting over of the task. When I say this, one typical example would be a front end developer who has gone ahead taking all the requirements from the user story or wherever uh, whatever you call it, maybe product backlog item or user story, and looking into all the requirements, he built something without having the correct backend API in place. And then later on, he has to get into touch with all the backend developers and get the API, and then find out eventually that you know the response which is coming from the API does not really match the design which he had done. Then he'll have to do workarounds in the front end, which is again a bad thing. So must the key takeaway from this situation is you must always take up the design the task and plan it and then start executing it you know So yeah, these are some basic overline things. This also applies to all the other sorts of developers, be it a DBA or be it a you know backend developer, front end, a UI UX designer, or maybe a test engineer. You have to basically see what the product is aiming to achieve. All right. Having said that, let's move on. The UI UX perspective. Yes, I have put quite a good amount of memes throughout the presentation so that it doesn't look like a boring odd presentation. So yeah, let's go on. So what I mean to say here is a good front end developer will always try to see the application from a user perspective. This is a very good point, and should always, like, this will enhance the application's you know capabilities. This will help the user, this will help the developer to provide a good, proper usable solution to the problem statement. Having said that, to be a successful UI UX person, you must ask fruitful questions which might end up solving any design gaps in the requirements. This is sometimes valued a lot. You know, the best part is that when you're not really understanding the when you don't see that the dots are being connected, that is a time when you'll notice that there is a design gap in the solution. For instance, if in an application as a front end developer you fill up a form and then you just submit it, and then backend does some validation, and then later on the user logs in and then he sees that okay, something is a mismatch. Instead of that, there is a very, this might not even be there, but just a solution, like if you can perform those validations beforehand itself in the front end, that will save a lot of effort put into developing something, and you know avoid a lot of confusions, and can connect the dot I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Sometimes attention to minute details might also alter the complete usability of the application. I mean, you know, for instance, putting a button on the right side. Is it the right side? On the left, on the left side of the screen. Have you ever come across a situation where you see the button on the left side? I mean, this will alter the usability of the, this will confuse the user. And sometimes, you have those primary and cancel and proceed buttons. If you replace it, it'll again, create a lot of confusion. So from a user experience perspective, you should always consider how the end user is going to proceed. You should always keep in the mind, how the end user is designed to work. Having said that, these things are very much required. You should have a keen eye for these things. Now, from a developer's perspective, this is a very pretty good meme I found on the internet. As a front end developer, you see this part of the sock, right? What exactly is happening at the back end. So anyway, this is the most crucial part. Front end developer always adheres to the best practices. Uh, and the developer must utilize the framework optimally he or she is working on. For instance, a developer using Angular framework must know all the features Angular has to offer to the developer, and hence leverage the features and build an app which is sustainable. One classic example I could think of in my career which I have faced is I have seen code where uh, you know there are sibling components, there are child parent to child components in the Angular application, and people are calling services to communicate between parent and child, where you can, that doesn't matter, it doesn't say that you cannot do, but a more efficient way would be like, child to parent binding or parent to child binding. Angular does give input and output operators. These are like some examples we will see when I upload Angular tutorials. So yeah, I mean, so you should have a good grasp of the framework which you are working on, so that you can deliver a good sustainable solution. So from a developer's perspective, this is another meme I put. A good front-end developer will keep him or herself updated with the latest JS libraries, you know, and the ES version. Basically, JavaScript is your bread and butter. That is what this meme is basically about. So you end up seeing how important JavaScript is for a front end developer. So yeah, so latest JS libraries, and ES basically what I mean here is ECMAScript. Currently, like you can use ES6 syntax. Like a lot of things have been like enhanced with respect to ECMAScript. You have good methods. You don't have to write many iterations. Like let's say from plain old vanilla JavaScript to ECMAScript 6, you have good functionality. You can use the JavaScript more flexibly and build better apps. Maybe like saves a lot of time and is maybe a faster way of working. One particular example is a for each method or fat arrow functions. Like it saves a lot of time and work. When I say fat arrow functions, you usually in anonymous function you have to basically declare the variable inside, and then you have to refer to the variable again. When I say fat arrow functions, um, you do have, what is it called, you do have like this keyword which you can use, and hence avoid a lot of memory allocation and other stuff. These are some complex things I'll talk about when I make the respective videos. Anyway, so moving on. As mentioned, a good front-end developer will always plan his or her tasks in advance and then gets into development. That's what I mentioned in the beginning. So a good front-end developer would always design the data flow, the necessary data which has to be bound to the front end and must communicate with the back-end person, efficiently, and lay down the necessary APIs required to get into the development tasks at hand. So that's what I mean by this. Also, having said that, it does become cumbersome when you get into development and then not having like how the data response is required for your task. So that's another point. Then you have to do the rework again, which I was talking about primarily in the first few slides. Going on about the best practices. Yes, this is another meme. I mean, I just did not want the presentation to be very plain. So yeah. Okay. So developer, be it a front end developer, back end developer, as I said, or a DBA or UI UX or a test engineer, you must always adhere to the best practices, which will help you deliver a good industry quality, industry standard, quality product. So let's look into some of the best practices. So yeah, good naming conventions. You must have some good naming conventions, proper casing throughout the code. That is, if there is a camel case, then you put the camel case throughout. Or if there is a Pascal case, then you maintain the Pascal case throughout. And then must use the best way to solve the problem. For instance, leveraging the right way to communicate between the components. This is something I had just mentioned a while back in Angular. Instead of using services, between all of the between a parent and child or something like that, you should always see how to leverage the tools you have at hand. Then comes the meaningful names for variables, sample data, and test data. This is in correspondence with the next line, basically. Next point. This makes the key, code readable and easily maintainable. Helps the developer to, understand what the previous person has written, or helps the developer to, understand what the next person is going to read. Anyway, having said that, you must avoid hot fixes and poor workarounds in the code. This is always going to be a deal breaker because it's not only going to increase the number of effort, but it's also going to lead to more complications. When I say that, let's say you fix something just because you had to fix it, it might lead to some complexities. For instance, it might break the code somewhere else. So yeah, having said that, you should always look while developing how to, what all possible scenarios you're going to cover. So these are like some few basic things you should always keep in mind, be it like any developer. So yeah, and that's all, folks. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Also share with all your friends. And this is again purely out of my experience. Whatever I've come across, I just thought I'll let you know and put it out there so that some folks who are just starting their career in front end development or any development for that matter can follow these best practices.